Welcome back to the techno-communism conversation. I'm going to talk a little bit about three gentlemen with the first name of Tupac. Um, I'm going to talk a little bit about three gentlemen with the first name of Tupac, two of whom were named after the original Tupac, Tupac Amaru II, an Andean indigenous freedom fighter. And the reason I'm talking about these three people is because I very recently read a book called The FBI's War on Tupac, which is not about that person of an earlier century, but of a person in living memory, of course, Tupac Shakur. And it covers other intelligence agency and U.S. Fascistic police force actions against other popular figures and against other um, um, serious political figures as well. And that's not to suggest, I want to say that if you look at the late 20th century and ask yourself who best fits the description of the thesis of this title of the film, Judas and the Black Messiah, which is a condensation of the words and mandate of this fascistic Federal Bureau of Investigation of the 1970s and many decades before and since, to stop the emergence of potential liberation figure in the North American continent. Most notably in that context, Fred Hampton, who was discussed at some length in this book by John Potash, The FBI's War on Tupac, which I will link in the description. Um, the If you were to say who fits that description of the um, um, uh, recent years, if Tupac Shakur hadn't been murdered by the fascist United States, he would be 53 years old today, and it would be Tupac Shakur, obviously. He would have. Tupac Shakur was a scientific socialist raised by Black Panther scientific socialist and liberation minded people. He was a scientific socialist activist, effectively, before he was a hip hop star. And you can even track conversations that were had with him and people in this orbit about becoming a hip hop personality to this express purpose, to um, um, bring about a revolutionary change in this otherwise doomed European supremacist continent. And that is the most important thing that anyone can or should say about hip hop music, is that it is um, um, best understood as a liberation movement, distinct from other musical subgenres in that respect, perhaps. No one better exemplifies that than Tupac Shakur, and that. Um, um, and so the thing that was done by similar forces to figures as they gravitated more toward scientific socialism, most notably Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X Shabazz, where they had become um, um, political figures of a kind that would be difficult to challenge by bourgeois and fascistic forces, and also had moved, in the case of Martin Luther King Jr. on the domestic stage, more into a scientific socialist modality. Of Malcolm X on the foreign affairs stage into a more scientific socialist modality. Both coming to the understanding that a humane and sustainable economic system must be built, and using their influence to do this, and boom, what do you know? Suddenly they're both dead. And this position that Tupac occupied, and as it relates more to the resources that he had at his disposal, is described in this book, The FBI's War on Tupac, which I recommend that you maybe get it from the library or purchase it from a local bookshop. But if you're not able to do those things and support Potash, maybe you can find ways to support African American liberation activism in other ways. But I will link the audiobook that you can listen to for free. Well, I thought I would say a word about another Tupac, another man named Tupac. Pardon me. And he was someone who was active in the city where I live, Phoenix, Arizona. A beautiful human being, Tupac Enrique Acosta. He died just some months ago, in November, and he was also a liberation-minded and scientific socialism-minded teacher and leader, and he struggled with cancer for many years and unfortunately succumbed to those ravages upon his body at the end of last year. And he wasn't quite as old as someone like Leonard Peltier, but he was of that generation and of that type of activists working within organizations like the American Indian movement and other liberation organizations. And I thought I would, I didn't know him well at all, but I did have occasion to see him before he passed in some context, and I thought I would say a word about this courageous man, and I'll maybe connect these two communities. You might say that the Native American community has. You would say that the Native American community is a more righteous liberation, marginally more righteous liberation movement than that of the African American community. The African American community has the distinction of having occupied the popular imagination and also being about. Don't have to go very far. For example, you can go to Tempe and find somebody who moves to Arizona to teach at Arizona State University, a large university in this city. And you might find somebody working in a discipline who imagines themselves to be a left liberal, imagines themselves to be a really great person, who has almost no knowledge of the fact that this their neighboring city is made up of a large Phoenix, and Maricopa County, where we all live, it has a large percentage of Native American people, has Native American, semi-autonomous Native American nations wholly housed within it, and they will tend to take the more typical attitude, academics generally, just as any other liberal piece of garbage, taking the position that Native Americans have gone the way of the dinosaur. They might not say it in so many words, but that's the overwhelming attitude of North American people. I was going to talk more about this book about Tupac Shakur, but I didn't make a lot of good notes on that, so I'll talk about the thing that I did make notes on, which is on another subject. Well, I would also recommend, I'll put a link to this as well, Assata Shakur, Tupac's aunt, who's still living, and is after receiving political asylum in Cuba, after being targeted by these very fascist police forces described before, and her biography, Assata, an autobiography, much like this book that I've read, might be a good introduction for people who are not well versed in scientific socialist thought to beginning to understand this, because it's true you should have read the Communist Manifesto and 100 other books of this kind, really. But I saw someone comment on Twitter moments ago that it's a good idea for you, socialist thought, not to be a historical recreationist goof, or as you already know. Yeah, fuck you. I'm not going to say that this person on Twitter is really gone awry or